been told in relationships in the past that you're really needy or clingy, there's probably numerous reasons for that. And going to see a therapist can really help with that. But sometimes when you're told you're needy, it's by someone who is emotionally unavailable. And I would say that happens a lot, especially in dating. Because remember, when you're dating, you're probably using a dating app. These people go from one person to another usually. They're looking for that significant other sometimes. Sometimes they're just whiling away the hours. And they don't really get real insightful about what's going on with themselves. And the problem is when you're told you're needy, you start seeing it, like you start believing it. And especially since being needy also has a vulnerable feeling that, gosh, maybe I really am that way. Maybe I'm really clingy. It is true, like I really want to get invested in relationships, when in fact, you might just be a very responsive partner and you're with someone who is emotionally immature, emotionally avoidant. And so you end up feeling like you're too needy for a relationship, which makes you hang on tighter to this person, when the true fact is you may be in the norm. You may not be needy at all. You might just be with someone who's emotionally unavailable. Now, emotionally unavailable people don't mean that that's how they are in every relationship. It's just that seasons happen in people's lives, right? And sometimes you're really on and you're really into the person, and then other people cross your path and they're just not. And it's hard to ascertain whether that's you or them. But I do know one thing: if you're emotionally unavailable, no matter who you're with, you're going to bring out any clingy tendencies they have. So I want to go through some different scenarios, some different questions. And if you'll sit down with your partner and just talk about this, of course, the more you see yourself in the needy points, then it would be a good idea to start pulling back and maybe get help with that. Go to counseling. Counselors will help give you activities and different challenges to try to help you be aware of that and help you feel the cues so you can move back a little bit. If you're emotionally unavailable, that's a little bit scarier, because for me, what I would suggest is you definitely see a therapist, because there could be a lot of things going on there. There could be a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of inability to go deeper, a lot of past trauma. And these things can influence not only this relationship, but every relationship you get involved with. So for emotional unavailable people, whether it's a season, which a therapist could easily, help you decide that, or something that's lingering from your past, it would behoove you to get in touch with it now. So the first one is, do you lose your sense of self? Okay, that's more likely with someone who is clingy. If a person starts, thinking about the relationship, about the other person, and puts all their emphasis on that, getting totally lost in what they want, they'll forfeit what they want to be in a relationship. Yeah, that's more of a clingy, dependent type thing, which you could get help with a therapist. Does he overreact, or does he get very defensive? If someone gets very defensive, that's more of an emotional unavailability, and they're fighting for space. Whenever you get defensive, you're fighting for your right, for your space. And that's a clear hallmark of someone who is emotionally unavailable. Are you jealous and controlling? Clingy personalities tend to have more jealousy, more insecurities, and more control over their partner. It's not so much that they're that way in general, but when it comes to their partner, yes, they are. Do you think you're too intense? Do you or your partner think you're too intense? People who are emotionally unavailable usually are very intense in mood, and they're usually involved in listening to that intensity, to whatever tapes they're replaying. So that's why I said it can be more serious and need more work, because it usually relates back to past childhood trauma. Do you seek constant reassurance? Once again, that's a little bit more of a telltale sign of someone who is clingy, because there's that insecurity, that self-doubt. Does he or she physically and emotionally withdraw? That's emotionally unavailable. That person is withdrawing because they're trying to protect themselves. Something happened. And once again, when something happened and you're not able to be honest and outright and transparent with it, then you have to entertain it in your head, which makes you more unavailable to your partner. Do you expect to make your partner happy? Once again, that's a clingy attribute, and they will do anything. That's why they lose themselves to themselves. They're so focused on making their partner happy. Do they constantly joke or make sarcastic remarks? This is more indicative of an emotionally unavailable person. When you are sarcastic, automatically you're pushing away. It's a form of, don't get too close to me. I don't want to get hurt. It's more of a defense mechanism. And especially when they make sarcastic remarks, it can be a way for them to feel better about themselves, because there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame about it being emotionally unavailable or trying to protect your heart because you're afraid it's going to get hurt again. Do you dread being apart? Once again, that would be more of a clinging attribute, something we would expect to see when someone very much wanted to hang on and salvage a relationship. Do they include you in their life? Once again, this is an emotionally unavailable attribute. Are they talking about you being part of their vision? Are they talking about what you're going to do tomorrow or next week? Or is that something they like to decide last minute, or they like to see how today goes and then they make that decision? Basically, they're seeing if they can muster up enough energy and enough interest and enough courage to maybe meet you again, because every time they do, they realize, I've got to keep this person at a distance. This is how they think. Do you rush into exclusivity? That would be a classic clingy trait. And do they put effort into the relationship? When someone is emotionally unavailable, they aren't putting a lot of effort in. You know who carries the emotional labor? That would be the clingy person. And that's why many times you see these two personalities together, or they start growing more this way together, because one person is always chasing and the other is always pushing away. In this kind of relationship, can it last? It can, and it does. However, it usually, once you do secure this and maybe you get married, you're going to see more and more tension, because one person is always going to feel dumped on, taken advantage of, and the other person is always going to feel like they're being smothered. They need to push away. And that dichotomy does not add to closeness or emotional or physical intimacy well.